What was written by Jesus on the ground when the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery to him? This took place during the Feast of Tabernacles, a very important time. The Pharisees asked Jesus whether the woman should be stoned according to the law. It was a clear attempt to trap him into going against either Roman law or the law of Moses. Put yourself in Jesus' shoes, dealing with a question that doesn't have a simple yes or no answer. How do you think he could have best handled this situation? The Pharisees were attempting to set a trap for Jesus in order to accuse him, but Jesus kindly bent down and began writing on the ground, almost as if he didn't hear their accusations. In John 8 verse 6, Jesus made a choice that may appear unusual to us today. His action of writing on the ground highlighted his authority over the law and underscored the significance of forgiveness and repentance. Within this passage, Jesus reveals the Pharisees' strict interpretation of the law of Moses, exposing their imperfections and limitations. When faced with the challenge from the accusers, Jesus shared a memorable lesson: "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." John 8 verse 7. Upon hearing these words, the accusers slowly dispersed, starting with the eldest among them. Jesus' approach encourages us to contemplate the true meaning of the law: compassion. Despite their devotion and knowledge, the Pharisees were supposed to stay and prove Jesus incorrect. This prompts us to wonder what Jesus wrote on the ground that caused them to feel remorseful and choose to depart. Jesus then stood up and kindly asked the woman, "My dear, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She joyfully replied, "No one, my Lord." Then Jesus lovingly said, "I do not condemn you either. Please go now and start a new chapter free from sin." John 8 verses 10 to 11. While the Pharisees used the law to accuse, Jesus offered forgiveness with a gentle nudge for the woman to embrace positive change. Through writing on the ground, Jesus not only displayed his authority over the law but also stressed the significance of forgiveness and the importance of repentance. He unveiled that the Pharisees' strict interpretation of the law of Moses lacked compassion and empathy. In this narrative, Jesus delves into profound topics like sin, judgment, and forgiveness. His reaction to the accusers underscores the notion that everyone is prone to sin and no one holds the right to pass judgment on another. His words to the woman showcase mercy and forgiveness, along with an uplifting message for her to transform her life. Have you ever thought about what Jesus might have written on the ground or why he chose to bend down and write something? Did you know that what Jesus wrote on the ground probably had a connection to the Old Testament? Jesus, by writing on the ground, was trying to share a lesson rooted in the Hebrew Scriptures. Throughout his time of teaching, Jesus revealed his divine nature on many occasions, often challenging the beliefs and expectations of the Pharisees and scribes. He performed numerous miracles that showcased God's power and showed unique authority in his teachings. Unlike the scribes, who frequently quoted other rabbis, Jesus showed the ability to forgive sins. In Jewish tradition, only God could forgive sins, highlighting the significance of Jesus' actions. Unfortunately, the religious leaders failed to recognize this due to their self-reliance and strict adherence to the laws. When we link Jesus' act of writing on the ground to events in the Old Testament, we can see similarities with the law of Moses. For instance, when the Israelites, feeling impatient with Moses' delay, decided to worship the golden calf, Moses got upset and broke the tablets holding God's law. Afterwards, Moses spoke up for the people, and God agreed to make a fresh start on the agreement, offering a new set of the 10 Commandments. In the case of Jesus, when he wrote on the ground, he was addressing the limitations in how the laws were being applied, a common theme in his teachings. Jesus did not disregard the law but instead fulfilled and broadened its significance. He emphasized that simply following the law in words was not sufficient to please God or lead a righteous life. This is why many believe that Jesus might have been jotting down the sins of the accusers to reveal a deeper truth. To explain the significance of writing on the ground, let's consider the book of Jeremiah. O Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you will be put to shame, those who turn away from you will be written in the earth. Jeremiah 17 verse 13. This implies that Jesus could have been listing the names of the accusers, marking them as those who denied him as the Messiah. In ancient times, when something was written in dust or sand, it was not considered permanent as it could easily be erased or disappear. Unlike writings in more enduring places like books or stone tablets, the message is clear. Those who do not embrace God may not have a lasting or stable future. Jeremiah beautifully describes God as the source of living water, a powerful metaphor indicating that God is the giver of life. Just as water is essential for physical life, God plays a vital role in our spiritual well-being. Before the incident with the woman caught in adultery, Jesus used a teaching moment in the temple during the final days of the Feast of Tabernacles. He shared a profound and thought-provoking message, revealing himself as the living water. This statement was challenging for many to grasp, particularly the scribes and Pharisees who had already closed their hearts to him. Inside the temple, Jesus continued the conversation about the law of Moses, highlighting the contradiction in the attitudes of the religious leaders. Jesus asked, "Why are you attempting to harm me?" in order to point out the hypocrisy of his accusers. He further said, "If you permit circumcision on the Sabbath to uphold the law of Moses, why are you upset with me for fully healing a man on the Sabbath?" This series of questions not only revealed the inconsistency in their beliefs but also demonstrated Jesus' authority and ability to interpret the law. Through this lesson, Jesus showcased his fundamental nature as a source of rejuvenation and vitality, challenging strict legal understandings. Numerous discussions have emerged regarding what Jesus may have written on the ground. Some propose that he could have been listing the transgressions of the Jewish leaders present. Another hypothesis suggests that since the woman was caught in adultery, she may have been unclothed. Jesus may have bent down to avoid directly gazing at her, thus respecting her dignity. Nevertheless, these explanations remain inconclusive. The primary focus of the passage is to uncover the hypocrisy of those who pass judgment on others. On the final and most important day of the festival, Jesus stood up with great enthusiasm and declared, "Hey, if anyone is feeling a bit parched, just come over to me for a refreshing drink. If you trust in me, just like the scriptures say, you'll find a fountain of living water gushing from within you." John 7 verses 37 to 38. These words showcase Jesus' warm welcome to everyone seeking true fulfillment and a spiritual recharge. The link between these verses and the story of the woman caught in adultery is quite meaningful. Both incidents shed light on the ongoing clash between Jesus and the religious authorities regarding adherence to the laws of Moses. The religious leaders were attempting to test Jesus by bringing the woman to him. But for Jesus, it presented yet another chance to uncover their double standards and their struggles in following the law. According to Leviticus 20 verse 10, both the man and the woman engaged in adultery were liable to face death. Yet, the Pharisees only brought the woman to Jesus, conveniently overlooking the man. This exposed their inconsistencies and imperfections, underscoring the importance of genuine fairness and compassion.